Hi, my name is Robert Baylor, and in the next 7.5 minutes, I'm going to share with you how losing my hearing almost got my father killed, even though he was standing no more than 5 feet away from me, screaming and begging for help, and how this terrible hunting accident led me to uncover a natural formula used for centuries by the Navajo people that helped me restore my hearing in just a few weeks without any drugs, life-threatening surgery, or expensive devices. And that's not all. I'll show you how even though this method has been known for centuries by people that have only recently included modern medicine into their healing practices, there is actual scientific evidence found in a recent groundbreaking research published by a team of Harvard scientists in the Natural Communications Journal, proving this formula is guaranteed to work for anyone, no matter if your hearing loss was caused by loud noises, ear infections, accidents, or simply because of aging. Because as you'll soon see, the real reason why you haven't been able to restore your hearing is directly linked to an insidious process happening inside your brain right now. Once you understand how this process works, you'll be able to restore it, repair the damage it has done to your auditory system, and regain your hearing, without having to go through dangerous surgery or take expensive drugs. In fact, this formula is 100% natural, and it's been proven to work for anyone, no matter how advanced your hearing loss is. No matter if you're 18 or 80 years old, or if you've been suffering from this debilitating disease for decades. I understand if you're skeptical right now. I don't expect you to believe me just yet, but if you want a safe and natural way to restore your hearing, and if you're sick and tired of all the lies the multi-billion-dollar hearing moguls have fed to you all these years, then continue watching this video until the end, before it's too late. Because for the past couple months, I've been getting threatening emails, midnight calls, and now a gang of lawyers called me to kindly let me know I'll get sued if I don't take this video down. This is the third time I'm uploading the same presentation. It looks like this natural hearing loss protocol is starting to cut into their profits fast, so now they're going out of their way to keep you from seeing this. So I urge you to watch this video now, while it's still up, because by tomorrow, when you come back, I may be forced to take it down forever. 68,382 men and women, and counting, from all over the world have already followed this method and improved their hearing naturally in a few weeks. People like Mike F. from Oswego, New York says, "No surprise they're out to get you. I was skeptical at first, but after looking over the research, I decided to try your formula. Now I'm off that annoying hearing aid and my life is back to normal. Finally." Or Jane R. from Texas says, "I've been waiting for something like this for almost all my life. This formula is a game changer. Thank you for sharing it. My hearing is better than it ever was before." And here's one from Craig G. from Minnesota. He says, "I was a bit skeptical about this method at first because I'd never heard about it before. But I am so glad that I decided to give it a try. I can finally have a conversation without asking people to repeat themselves. I got my life back. This is why I unveiled this amazing natural formula, to help people get their hearing back fast and naturally without going through painful procedures or spending their life savings on life-threatening surgeries. Now, if you've already tried to restore your hearing, you've probably been told the same shameless lies I've heard from my doctor. First, that there is no way you can get your hearing back without surgery. More precisely, a $50,000 cochlear implant, which means they replace the part in your ear responsible for your hearing loss with a new one. They want you to think that your ear is beyond repair, and you'll need a brand new one if you ever want to hear again, even if you need to sell your house to just hope this surgery doesn't cripple you for life. And if you aren't rich enough, they try to sell you the second less expensive package. When I went to my first doctor appointment, he told me I'd have to wear a $4,000 hearing aid for the rest of my life. I would be dependent on it every minute of every hour, and I was explained that's normal for my condition. And I believed him. I bought one and wore it for a while, even though it was so embarrassing and irritating that I just wanted to throw it against the wall. I was ashamed, embarrassed, and didn't tell my family about how bad my hearing had gotten, and I refused to wear that annoying hearing aid in front of anyone. This forced me to make supernatural efforts to hear anything people said, so I tried to stay indoors as much as I could and not talk to anyone. That gave me enough time to look for alternative solutions that might help me get back my hearing, or at least improve it so I could live a normal life. I tried everything I read about: Chinese herbs, acupuncture, pills, everything on the list. I was so desperate to find something, anything that worked, that I started tricking myself into believing I was making progress. I wish I'd known about this natural formula back then. I wouldn't have had to go through so much suffering and shame. But in reality, my hearing was getting worse by the day, and I had no clue about it. I lived my everyday life trying to get by unnoticed, and I didn't even realize how bad my problem had become until the day when a cougar attacked my father 5 feet away from me, and I couldn't even hear it happening. We were out hunting, something we've been doing together ever since I was a kid. So imagine the horror on my face when I saw him lying on the ground 5 feet away from me, with this vicious animal crushing his bones under its weight. My heart pumped out of my chest as I ran towards him, just as he shot the cougar and collapsed. I grabbed my dad and rushed to the hospital. The doctors asked me over and over again what happened, but the truth was I had no idea. I was facing the other way, and I couldn't hear a thing. I was looking at him lying unconscious on the hospital bed, and I was so full of remorse, I couldn't think of anything but the enormous sacrifices he made for me and my mom. My father was born and raised in one of the Navajo communities in Arizona. As you may already know, the Navajos rely on old medical practices to treat their people, and one of the most important skills for their communities is medical knowledge. Doctors are highly educated and respected by the entire community, and they are the only ones who know the secrets to treating hundreds of diseases and ailments naturally. My grandfather was the most trusted doctor in his community. He taught my dad everything he knew, passed all his secrets on to him, so my father could continue saving lives when he'd be gone. My dad made huge sacrifices so I could have everything I needed, and there I was, in that tiny hospital room, holding his hand and praying that he'd open his eyes again. After 12 long hours, he woke up, looked around, and frowned, like he was trying to remember something. I jumped up from my chair and took his hand. "Don't worry, I'm here with you, Dad," I said to my father. But he just looked at me and said, "I called for you, Robert. Where were you?" In that moment, tears started flowing on my cheeks, and all I could say was, "I'm sorry, Dad. I couldn't hear you." He tried to tell me what happened, but he couldn't remember for how long or how he fought the animal. He did remember screaming my name over and over again, and I wasn't there to help him. Thank God my father is the strong, ambitious man that he is, and with his last bit of his strength, he reached for his gun and shot the cougar dead. The blast of his gun, a noise that would normally wake up an entire neighborhood, seemed like a balloon popping to me. Looking at my father and seeing what I've done to him, I wanted to bury my head in the sand in shame. How can you tell your own father that he almost died because you were too proud and too ashamed to admit you're going deaf? But my ignorance had cost me more than I was willing to sacrifice. So I decided to tell my parents the truth about the accident, about my hearing loss, everything. I felt so guilty, I couldn't even look into their eyes when I unraveled the whole story. How I discovered my problem, how the doctors told me I would lose my hearing if I didn't get surgery, how I tried every alternative solution but nothing worked, and finally, how ashamed I was to tell anyone I was losing my hearing at 43. While I was talking, my dad stared at me with a look on his face that I couldn't read. I stopped in the middle of the phrase and just went ahead and asked him, "Why are you looking at me like that?" "Don't worry, son. I'm here for you. I can help you out," he said. I was very moved by my dad's understanding and support, especially since my hearing problem was the reason why he ended up in hospital in the first place. I thanked him and promised to both my parents I would do anything possible to solve my hearing problem. But my dad interrupted me with a shake of the head. No, you will do no such thing. I will help you improve your hearing in no time. I could have helped you from the beginning if you had only told me about it. You shouldn't have gone to those doctors. You should have come to me," he said. Honestly, at this point, I was convinced that my dad suffered a serious hit to the head and was losing it. He was so serious talking all that nonsense, like he actually believed it. I looked at Mom and suggested we should call the doctor to check him up again, just in case he missed something. But that's when I saw her face light up, like she had a revelation. Then she said, "Oh yeah, that thing you have from your father. I'll go look for it right away." I had no clue what was going on. I didn't know whether Mom was actually going to look for something or she was going to alert the doctor. But the minute she walked out the door, my dad started telling me about this amazing formula that can help people with their hearing loss. Whether it's caused by old age, loud noises, accidents, or ear infection, without any other intervention. No hearing aids, no pills, no surgery, no nothing. "We've had this formula for generations, Robert," my dad said to me. "We were forced to. Our ancestors had to hunt in order to feed their families. So they had to keep their eyes and ears crystal sharp, he added. This will help you restore your hearing, just like it did for everyone else in our family, my dad replied. To me, it sounded just like something a salesman would say on TV. But, on the other hand, my father was far, far from being that sort of salesman. After all, he was born and raised in the Navajo community, descendant from a long line of respected doctors who have passed their secrets from generation to generation. And what's truly amazing is that their remedies are still in use today with the same extraordinary effects. Before leaving his community, my father was getting ready to become a Navajo doctor as well, so he was well trained in traditional medicine. His father even made him a thick, leather-bound compendium with all the Navajo remedies, down to the tiniest detail. It was like a cookbook for medical purposes, and it was a secret that he swore to keep to himself for as long as he lived. When my mom handed me the old, dusty book, I looked at her in complete disbelief. There it was in black and white. The Navajo secret formula was in fact just a list of ingredients that I was supposed to consume for a few weeks, together with a set of specific instructions. If that's all it would take to get my hearing back, I should be better already. I just couldn't get how a few ingredients mixed together could improve my hearing. But I couldn't afford to lose any more time. The reality was that my hearing got weaker by the day, and right now I needed a real solution fast, or I'd end up deaf. It was the first time my parents saw me on the verge of a breakdown. I didn't want them to see me this way, so I turned around to walk out the door. That's when my dad made one last move. Look, just take this recipe. I'll tell you where to go look up the ingredients written here and see for yourself what this recipe can do. Your doctor has been lying to you, and this is the evidence, my father said to me confidently. Going through the list again, I realized that the best I could say was that I barely consumed one or two of those ingredients on a daily basis, and I most definitely didn't do it the way it was written here. So I went home and decided to give it a try, without setting any expectations for myself. Nothing happened in the first few days, and I'll admit, I wanted to give up. But then something magical happened. One morning I could hear the TV from the kitchen, something I couldn't do for so long that I found it strange at first. Then one day I left to work without taking my hearing aid. I thought I'd have to avoid my colleagues all day long so I don't have to say to them, "I'm sorry, what?" over and over again. So imagine my surprise when I realized I could understand what they were saying, and even eavesdropped on a conversation just to see if I could hear everything. I was so excited with the results, I couldn't wait to get my hearing back completely. My colleagues kept asking me when I got my surgery done, or what type of hearing aid I'm using now. And whenever I told them I used a Navajo formula to get my hearing back, they'd laugh, or just walk away like I was insane. But my test results were as clear as daylight. My hearing had improved, and there was no trace that I ever had a problem with it. I took those tests over and over again as my doctor stared at them in awe and ordered a new set. He couldn't understand how that could possibly happen. And the truth was, neither could I. So I decided to do a little research and see what makes this formula so amazing that it could improve my hearing in just weeks. There had to be a medical reason behind this, and I was set on discovering it. When I first went to the doctor, he showed me a board with detailed drawings and diagrams on the causes of hearing loss. This may sound familiar to you. Hearing loss happens when a crucial type of cells in your ear called hair cells become weak and eventually die. The weaker these cells get, the more they die and the less you hear. The problem was that scientists could not find a way to regrow or regenerate these hair cells. Until now. A medical discovery that has shaken the entire hearing industry from the ground up, and as you can imagine, made some big pharma fat cats very unhappy. To be honest, it's very uncertain whether a drug will ever see the light of day. If it will ever see it, since there are a lot of side interests who are bent on burying something like this. After all, it's not making them long-term profits. And even if it's developed, it will take years before it's approved, and even decades to be publicly available. Because all this funding comes from the same multi-billion-dollar hearing loss industry, which has been feeding you a river of lies all these years, just to use you as their personal cash cow. Think about it. Why would a corporation whose entire profit depends on people like you and me, people experiencing humiliating hearing loss, why would they want us to heal completely with a simple method that won't bring any money into their pockets? Their goal isn't to eliminate the cause of your hearing loss. They just want to sell you something very expensive that will make you feel better only when you use it. They want you addicted to their products. Take hearing aids. They help you hear better, but without them, you're lost. So you keep shelling out money into better and more comfortable products they produce, while your hearing gets worse and worse until it's all gone. The only way to actually restore your hearing, judging by the 4 different doctors I saw, is a $50,000 cochlear implant. But that's a huge, fat lie. That's not restoring your hearing. That's getting a brand new, extremely expensive hearing that will help make your doctor filthy rich. The better way that I found to remedy your hearing loss has been kept secret for centuries and is found in the heart of the Navajo community. Their remedies are some of the most powerful in the world, but they are kept locked inside their world,